Hi all, welcome to educators.com. I'm Harish, software engineer. In this session, we will learn about the page redirection in JavaScript and how to make XML HTTP request through JavaScript. Okay, so by end of this session, we should be able to understand what are the different ways to have a page redirection in JavaScript and how we communicate with the server using the XML HTTP request. So let's start with page redirect. So what is actually page redirect? Redirecting a web page to another web page is page redirection. So it is simply like, let's say we are in page X. So when you redirect the user from page X to page Y, is all about this page redirection. Here JavaScript supports many ways for page redirection, and we'll be going through these different ways in coming slides. And page redirection should not be as unexpected redirect. So if you make this unexpected redirect from any page, this will affect the overall user experience. Okay, like let's say current I'm in page X. So without user intervention, if we redirect to other page, or if we do something uh, unexpected way, or all of a sudden, it will affect the user experience because the user doesn't know whether how this page has been redirected and what is happening within this the application. So the user might not like your application if there are redirects, sudden redirects. Okay, and one more thing apart from this redirects, it will also affect the search engine. Like means like the search engines will remove this pages or the application from their indexes if there are unnecessary redirects. So you should be very careful during redirection to other pages. So one more important thing is when you need to use redirect, actually the redirect is used, let's say on click of a button you want to go for the sign up page, register page or login page or anything. So but should be like based on the user input itself. Most of the page redirect should be only based on user inputs. Okay, and okay, one more thing which I want to say is the location object, which is a property of window object, contains the details of the current web page. So let's say how you will be knowing about which URL has been loaded and what's the protocol and everything. So that you can get through the location object, which is a property of window object. Okay, the location object contains each and every detail about the URL. Okay, so coming to properties, so these are some of the properties related to the location object. Like the first property, href, it gives the URL of the current page. So here when you use the href property, it will give the complete URL of the current page. Host name, it returns the domain name of the web content, web host. And the path name, it returns the path and file name of the current page. And protocol returns the web protocol used. So here in this example you can check I declared a website name, say in www.sample.com basicsoperators.html. So here the protocol value of the location object becomes HTTP and the path name becomes the basics operators.html and the host name becomes the actual domain, and then the href, which will return the complete URL. So this is how the properties of the local object contain the values related to the current page. Okay, so coming to methods, so how we will be redirecting from one page to other page. So first method is assign. This method is used to redirect the user to different page. So this is one of the method how we redirect the user from current page to the other page. So the simple thing is you can use window.assign or assign simply, and then you need to pass the URL value to which you want to redirect the user. Okay. So apart from this assign method, we can also directly assign the value to the href property. Uh, so assign method can be used to redirect, but apart from that, we can also use property href to which you can directly assign the value. Once you assign the value, if it doesn't match the current existing URL, it will redirect the user to the next page. Reload method. If you reload the current document, we can use the reload method of the location object. Let's say you don't want to redirect the user from to that page. You want to redirect the user to the same page, so that means reloading the page again. So how we can do it? We can do it with the reload method. Okay. So by default, it reloads the page from cache. We can force it to load from the server by passing the parameter as true. So when you don't pass any arguments to the reload method, it will load the pages from the cache. Whereas if you pass the argument as true, it will fetch the details from the server. Okay. So if you want to redirect the user to the previous page, we can use the window.history object methods back, forward, and go. Okay. So let's say instead of redirecting the user to the other page, if you want to mm, redirect the user to the uh, pages which are already visited by the user, like you want to move forward or the backward, or you want to jump to pages before or after the current page. So this all can be done using the back, forward, and go methods of window history object. Okay. So when you use this back method, it is used to load the previous URL in the history list. Okay. So here you can check, we will be calling the back method over the history object. Okay. So this is simple. I mean, it doesn't accept any arguments. And coming to forward, this method is used to load the next URL in the history list. Okay. So it will load the next URL which is there in the history list. Go method. This method is used to load a specific URL from the history list. So here you can pass the parameter which is a number that denotes how many pages it should go back or forward. So similar to back and forward, it will also load this URL from the history list. But the thing is, using back and forward, you can jump to the next step or the previous step. But whereas coming to go, you can jump 2 steps before or 2 steps after the current URL page. So this is how we can use the go method. So here in this example, you can check if I'm passing -2, it will jump to the previous 2 pages. So if I pass this 2, it will jump to the next 2 pages. Okay. So this is how go method works. To XML HTTP request. XML HTTP request is an API that provides client functionality for transferring data between a client and a server. So here, if you want to send data to the server, or if you want to fetch data from server without reloading the page or without distraction for the user, you can do that using the XML HTTP request. So it provides an easy way to retrieve data from a URL without having to do a full page refresh. So this is one of the advantage of using the XML HTTP request. So without distracting the user from the page and without reloading the page again, we can fetch the data from the server and then just post it back to the web page. This enables a web page to update just a part of the page without disrupting what the user is doing, as I mentioned before. So XML HTTP requests are used mainly like based on some user action. We'll be populating some data. So let's say we have a 10 buttons, and based on a button selection, different button selection, we'll be displaying different data. So that too on demand. That means only on the click of the button we'll be loading the data. So this can be done using this XML HTTP request. So XML HTTP request was originally designed by Microsoft, and it was adopted by Mozilla and led by Apple and Google. So apart from this HTTP protocol, it also supports other protocols like HTTPS, FTP, etc. And it is used to retrieve any type of data like HTML, text or JSON data or any kind of data which is uh, rendered by the JavaScript. Okay, constructor. So this constructor is used to create the XmlHttp request. So this XmlHttp request constructor is itself used to create the XmlHttp request object, which will be used to send data or fetch data from server. So this XmlHttp request accepts some of the parameters. Okay. So first let's check with the some of the parameters like on ready state change. This is one of the event handler which will be fired when there is a change in the state, like whether there is a progress or whether it is under ready or whether it has fixed state or any kind of state change. It will trigger the event handler. Okay, so ready states, it defines the current state of the XmlHttp request object. So what current state is like with the two which I mean different status like states we have, right? Like loading under progress or queue or something. So it will define currently in which state is our XmlHttp request object. Okay. So coming to response text, it returns a DOM string that contains the response to the request text or null if the request was unsuccessful or has not yet been sent. So response text contains the data which is written from the server in the form of a string or a text. So it will be null if the request is unsuccessful or it is not sent. Okay. So coming to status, it returns an unsigned short with the status of the response of the request. So currently what kind of status it is, like 200 or 300. So it returns the status, current status of that request. Okay. So let's check with the methods, like what are the methods are available over this XML HTTP request. So first is the open. Open method is used to initialize the request. Okay. So send. It sends the request. If the request is asynchronous, this method returns as soon as the request is sent. So what does this mean by asynchronous? When you make make a call from this or call this send method, it will execute the next statement itself without waiting for the response from server. So all XML HTTP requests by default they are asynchronous. Okay. So coming to set request header, it sets the value of an HTTP request header. It should be called after the open method and before send method call. So as open method will initialize the request, and then we need to set some of the request headers which will be passing over this XML request, HTTP request, like if you want to pass any data or any kind of thing. So we can set this using the set request header. Abort. It aborts the request if it has already been sent. So whatever will be the if the request is sent and if you call this method, it will terminate the request itself. So coming to get response header, it returns a string containing the text of the specified header or null. So when you want the value of a given header, you can use this method. If you want to have or get all the response headers, you can also use the method called get all response headers method. This method will return all the response headers as a string or as null. Okay. So this is the basic syntax of creating the XML HTTP request. So here you can check that we created a variable called request and then create an object using this XML HTTP request constructor. And here we added on this ready state change handler and based on this ready state, which is a 4 and the register state is 200, we want to do something. So why this steady state 4 and this dot state 200? Only when why we need to check for the success, do some action is because state is 200 is of okay, and the ready state is, that means that it has registered something response from the server. Okay, so request dot open, this will initialize the request, and when you call the send only, this request will be sent, or else the request will not be sent to the server. Okay, so this is the example of the XmlHttpRequest. Here I created the XmlHttpRequest object, and then I assigned the handler to the onReady state change event. So in that handler, I'm just checking like whether if the request.ready state is 4 and the status is 200, I am printing the response text in the div, okay, which has an ID as sample div. So here I'm opening the get request with the given URL and the value which I like to pass to the server in the as a query string. Okay. So when I call this send method, this request will be sent to the server. So this is how the XmlHttpRequest request will be working in the JavaScript. So now let's flip to brackets IO. So here, before creating that XmlHttpRequest request, I have created a sample JSON file containing the JSON data. So here, from this XmlHttpRequest request page, we will be accessing the sample JSON data, okay, and we'll be showing the data in the DOM. So now let's try to create an XML HTTP object using the XML HTTP request. Okay, and let's try to define an event handler for the onReady state change. So let's add an if condition saying this dot ready state equals to 4 and this dot status equals to 200. Let's try to print that response text. Okay, this dot response text. Okay, and let's try to open this XML HTTP request first with the getter method, and then let's mention the URL value, which is the sample JSON, and then we are saying that open request should be asynchronous. So XML HTTP dot send. Okay, so this request will be sent. So let's check. It says as undefined. So let's add a debug over here and check like why this is undefined. Oh, we added the O in between the we in the response text property. So that's why we are unable to see the output. Yeah, here you can check in the log. It has printed the JSON data which is written from the server. Okay, So this is how you can access the files or any resources or any data from the server using the XML HTTP request. Okay. So why we need to add this if condition is because if you don't add this if condition, it will be executing this code which is within the if condition each and every time when there is a change in the state. So that's the reason you need to handle this code within this if conditions where you'll be checking the ready state value and the state value. Okay. So apart from this, let's check with the location object. So here you can check that it has different properties related to this URL like host name, href, origin, path name, port, protocol it's been using. So these are some of the methods as well as the properties which will be for this page. Okay. So this is all about the XML HTTP request and page redirect. So that's all from this session. Thank you.